So now that we know how to check for equality in strings, let's make our program work a little better. So right now the way it's run, I've declared at line 36, I've got a new J option pane to ask the user what their location is. And we're just going to go ahead and compile and run this. And now it's going to ask me where I'm located at and what my speed is. So for my first place for my location, I'm just going to enter in space. We'll do capital S-P-A-C-E, and notice the capitalization. And we're going to go ahead and enter a speed of 7 again. So now that I've changed with capitalization, notice that still works because I went ahead and I've ignored case. Okay, so space is the same thing as capital SP, so I'm in space. That's fine. But if we look at our output, I entered the speed of 7, and notice that we get all of this output. So our first output is these are equal. That was just a test to look at. We'll actually take this away right now. We don't need that anymore. So we'll just remove that. And the next one, you are in space. Okay, that's good because I do need to know that I am in space. And then I get that I need the space shuttle. And that's actually true because if I'm traveling 7 miles an hour, which is less than 300, and I'm in outer space, I need the space shuttle. However, I also get crash. Well, crash is true as well because if I'm in the air and traveling under 10 miles an hour, I will crash. 7 is under 10 miles an hour. So both of these, space shuttle and crash, are correct answers. However, it depends on where I'm at to make them correct. So how do we distinguish between the two? How do we distinguish between which if statement we want to run, which we don't? Well, that's what's going to actually be called the nested if. And here's how the nested if works. Let's go ahead and we'll just go put this. Oops. Spell that correctly. Nested if. So what a nested if is, it's basically just an if inside of another if statement. Okay, so it's an if inside of an if. So right now we've got if where equals ignore case space, and that's it. That's the end. What we want to do is we're going to go ahead and add a little bit more. So let's go ahead and we'll close this off, and we're going to do an else if. And inside of our else if, I better make that lowercase. Else if, we'll do a condition. And we'll say string where equals ignore case air. And make sure we put our closing curly brackets there. We'll do a sysout print line. We'll say you are in air. Okay. And let's do this a couple more times now. So we're just going to take this else if and we'll just do that, enter that. Cool. And this last else if, well, we'll come to that one in a second. So first, if we're in space, that's fine. If we're in air, then we're going to be in land. And finally, this last else if, this is fine. We could change this to C, but it's kind of redundant to check some. If we're not in space, if we're not in air, if we're not in land, then we know, according to our program, we are going to be in C. So that means we could do an else if. However, an else will take care of it. It's actually better coding because now we're not checking for anything. We know that if we're not in the top 3, then we have to be in the C. By the way, if you want to have your code check for something different than, or if you want to handle it different, that if the user did not enter air, land, sea, or space, then you could have the else be, you are not at this location. Right now, this will work for what we want to do. So you are in the sea, you are in the land. Let's get that changed, land. Okay, you are in the air, you are in the space. So everything is fine. If we go ahead and we compile, and we're going to run it. And now for our location, we'll just do a test. I'm not going to test all of them, but I will test this one. Enter a location. We're going to say land, A-N-D. And enter a speed, and my speed is going to be 9. Click OK. Okay, and so right here, you are in land, which is perfect. And space shuttle, again, we still have this issue before. So the issue is this. Everything is correct based on different locations. However, it's not taking into account my location whenever it's checking speed. So we want to create what's called the nested if. And again, a nested if is just an if inside of another if statement. So how does that work? Well, let's go ahead and we're just going to take our space. Now remember, this checks speed. Okay, all we're looking at is our speed. So we want to take this if statement. We're going to take it right outside of there. We're going to go right inside of here. As long as the user enters space, we want to go there. And by the way, I'll show you how to enter this really quick. We're going to highlight this, and we're just going to go Tools, no Edit. Where did we put it? Tab. Indent. There's your indentation if we want to do multiple indents at one time. So this is now a nested if, and yes, this can get a little bit tricky, especially as you start dealing with all these open parentheses, open curly brackets. So you want to make sure you take care whenever you're playing with if statements, nested ifs, that you're opening and closing at the same time. Opening a parenthesis, close a parenthesis, open a curly, close a curly. However, whenever we compile, everything works, and I'm actually going to give myself a space right here on this else if. Okay. That way we'll just do a comment error. And we'll just take our error right here, and this is another if statement. And we're going to take this error right on out of here, and I'm going to throw this right in here. And we'll highlight this, and I'm going to do an indent on it. Okay, so now these are indented. Okay, so what does this actually say? Well, watch. This is where the cool really happens. We know that our space and our error and our land already worked. Why? Because we just checked it. We're giving an assist.out message line. However, let's go ahead, now that we've made a nested if, an if inside of another if, and by the way, you can nest as many ifs as you want to, we're going to run our code, and we're going to type in document out of sync, compiler code, and then we're going to run our code. So now we will enter error. And I'm going to enter a speed of, we'll say 55. So then we click OK. So what does our code do? Well, first, it gets where our location is and what our speed is. So our location is air, okay, and that's going to convert it to a lower case, or it's going to ignore case. And so the first line, if string where, which is air, is space, which this is false. So that means this if connects with this close curly bracket. This is all the if statement. All of this is ignored. This is false. Okay? If air equals space false. So then we go down to our else if. Else if air equals air. This is now a true statement. So now it's going to start executing the code inside of this if block. Okay? This else if runs right here. So now we're in this code right here, and now we're just checking our speed. So first we checked our location. As long as we're in the air, now we can check these speeds. Int speed is greater than 100. This was false. So int speed is greater than 30. 55 is greater than 30. Prop plane is what we need. So there's your prop plane. We are in the air. We need the prop plane. Now we're out of if. Since we found our match, we execute this code from here to here, and we'll go ahead and we'll get an enter right there. Okay, and then we leave. We don't check this else if, and we never get down to this else. And that's all a nested if does. It looks inside. It's an if inside of an if statement, and you can nest as many ifs as you want to. But that's really all there is to it.